It was almost a month ago when Newcastle United triumphed over Liverpool in the Carabao Cup to win their first major trophy since 1955. Generation upon generation had been waiting, hoping, longing to experience something like this before they perished, and many never did, and that was what made this one so much more special. Because this was not only a win for those living in the moment, but for those who stayed loyal until they met their demise. What makes Newcastle's achievement so much more impressive is that just 3 years ago, they were winless after 14 league games, sitting in 19th. So how did we get here so fast? On October 7, 2021, the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund completed the takeover of Newcastle United, which was worth over 300 million euros. This immediately made Newcastle the richest club in the Premier League. And even though it was the same club sitting 19th with the same coach and players, the first home game after the takeover had an atmosphere not seen at St. James in a long time. Changes were expected to be imminent though, and Newcastle's new leadership acted quickly. They sacked Steve Bruce after the first game of the new era and replaced him with a coach who had shown through multiple seasons with Bournemouth that he could put up a fight against anyone. Then in January, the Magpies spent almost 90 million on Dan Burn, Kieran Trippier, and the highly touted Bruno Guimaraes. Newcastle went on to soar from the relegation zone to finish 11th after having the 4th best record during the second half of the season. Into 2022-23, the club continued to spend and build upon this success. 185 million euros was used to bring in Sven Botman, Anthony Gordon, and Alexander Isak, and as a result, Newcastle United qualified for the Champions League for the first time in 20 years. The following season, they brought in Sandro Tonali, who at the time was one of the best midfielders in the world. However, a few months later, it turned out he had a gambling problem, and he was suspended for the rest of the season. Unlucky for Newcastle, and that pretty much summed up the rest of their season. A major injury crisis throughout the campaign saw 41 different instances, and it pretty much derailed the whole season as Newcastle crashed out of the Champions League groups and finished 7th in the league. Now into this season though, of course, Newcastle has done really well to bounce back. Alexander Isak has turned into a full-blown monster, and after 28 games, Newcastle are within close contention for a Champions League spot. And as mentioned before, they just won the Carabao Cup and ended a long trophy drought. So over the last 3 years, Newcastle fans have been over the moon, and it's been pretty cool seeing a club rich in history return to prominence. But with every mention of their successes, there's one thing that unfortunately always poisons it. Their owners, the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund, is the country's official wealth fund. The whole point of the Public Investment Fund is to diversify the economy, that way Saudi Arabia isn't relying on just oil money. The PIF is also chaired by Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince and the Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia, which became a big concern during the takeover process because the Premier League needed to ensure there was a distinct separation between the Saudi government and the Public Investment Fund, because having a whole country own a club is, pretty dangerous. Now I know some people are going to be like, oh Maxwell, but what about the American owners like Chelsea and them? Well, they're not exactly funded by the government, and if they were, yeah, that would be a massive problem, not only for the clubs, but also our country. Anyways, the dispute was eventually sorted, and shortly after the takeover happened. So there was a distinction between the Saudi government and the wealth fund that is controlled by the Saudi government, right? 2 years ago, The Athletic did an investigation into emails between government officials, and it was revealed that the UK government was concerned that if the takeover failed, relations between them and Saudi Arabia would worsen. Which, I don't know, just might be me. Sounds like the Public Investment Fund and the government have a green chemistry link. But there was a far worse issue in all of this, and that revolved around Saudi Arabia's awful human rights record. According to Reporters Without Borders, Saudi Arabia is ranked 166th out of 180 countries for freedom of speech. Independent media is almost non-existent, and journalists are under high surveillance. Even the ones outside the country, in the case of Jamal Khashoggi, who was assassinated for being critical of the Crown Prince. Women's rights are also another massive issue. Male guardianship laws pretty much prevent women from ever having the same rights as men, and activists who have protested these laws on social media have been arrested. Their trials are often unfair, sentences have been insane, including one woman who was given 34 years for just tweeting. And the only way for these sentences to be reduced is through intervention by the United Nations. And of course, if you are a member of the LGBTQ+, yeah, you're gonna be thrown in jail and tortured. Now, Saudi Arabia has made more progress over the years through their Project 2030 movement, like giving women more rights, but there is still a lot of work to do, and it is 2025. So yeah, basically, this is another case of sports washing. But I do kind of feel like this term has turned into a bit of a buzzword. People don't seem to really elaborate on it. I've been guilty of this too in the past, so let's actually dive into how the Saudi government is actually using Newcastle to sports wash. First, we have the surface level stuff. Newcastle United. Prior to the takeover, Newcastle were owned by Mike Ashley. This was a man of so many broken promises. He hired people who were less qualified than football manager players, he barely ever invested anything into the club, and never even allowed the club to spend its own money. Newcastle over the years suffered for this in some of the most painful ways imaginable, because just when it seemed like things were going well, Mike Ashley would find a way to fuck it up with his lies and incompetence, and also his greed. During this era of Sports Direct, the company Mike Ashley owns being all over the stadium despite never making the club much of a profit, Newcastle United experienced constant battles for survival and 2 relegations. Just pure misery for the fans of this club. The Saudi Public Investment Fund, though, since coming in, has done exceptionally well in helping those in misery. But it goes much farther than just the club. Over the last few decades, sections of Newcastle have pretty much been left to rot and decay because of the decline of industries like coal and steel. The northeast region itself that Newcastle is in continues to struggle with above average poverty and unemployment. And with the UK government constantly failing these cities and poverty rates and unemployment rates only going up, the people in these cities are getting more desperate for someone to save them. And so in comes the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund. Again, they've been following a model that the Man City owners also use and have been investing into the city itself. This is why sports washing is so effective. These were struggling people whose only escape from the stress and uncertainty of normal life was a football club that only made them more miserable. But thanks to the Saudi Public Investment Fund, they've made the community able to dream within their escape. And now they can also dream within their own lives. Don't get me wrong, this is all amazing stuff that they're doing, but at the end of the day, this is all in an effort to gain influence and power. The Saudi PIF has taken advantage of the UK government's own incompetence and negligence, and now the Saudi government has a more favorable image amongst the public. That same influence extends to government officials because, again, Saudi Arabia is just doing the UK's work. Now, nations like the UK can get away with this incompetence and other atrocities because they have a better global image, whereas Saudi Arabia has to work for that reputation. But with people in power and the public in their pockets, all this influence can be used to make sure the Saudi government doesn't get scrutinized for its issues back home, and in turn, they can continue doing shit like allegedly evicting tribes and killing them if they protest for a brand new futuristic city that will apparently host the 2029 Asian Games. The Winter Games. Now, the Saudi PIF and its goons within the club have in the past constantly insisted that the PIF is separate to the Saudi government. Nowadays, though, they are either doing a really bad job at showing that, or they just don't care anymore. Because recently, they've been paying football influencers to promote tourism for the country. I'm not kidding. Now, to an extent, I know how it feels like as a influencer to have someone offer you a lot of money. I have my own story about this, but it's kind of a little off topic, so if you want to hear it, I made a video on my second channel. I saw this one Newcastle influencer's ad, and I get it to a certain extent. Judging from the description of his YouTube channel, because, you know, usually when you put something in the description, you're proud of it. This is a guy who has always wanted to work for his favorite club growing up. And now he is. And as we've seen in this video, the Saudi Public Investment Fund does a really good job at providing people's needs and wants. That's all the empathy I have though, because the guy still sold his soul. He still accepted money from an authoritarian regime. In no way does any of my empathy get in the way of me shitting on him for contributing to Saudi Arabia's blatant sports washing. Recently he came out with a statement, or at least I think this was a statement. I don't know. It's a tweet screenshotted, posted on Snapchat. God, I fucking hate football influencers. Basically, he just says like, oh yeah, I know it's bad, but they paid for my vacations. Like, come on, man. Also, let me throw this one out too. Allegedly, this guy was very hostile to some no sports washing campaign, pretty much like right after the takeover. Oh, there's also this screenshot of a tweet that, you know, again, he's just playing victim, and it's just really, really disgusting. So on second thought, I don't have empathy anymore Fuck this guy. However, I have zero empathy for people like Thogden, who also made a video about Saudi tourism, because this is a guy who has zero connection to Newcastle United, and he's already one of the biggest football influencers anyways, so he doesn't even need to do this. I can't lie though, the video is hilarious. Like, there are porn levels of acting in this, and then you remember it's for Saudi propaganda, which makes this even funnier.
70-year wait is finally over. Newcastle have a trophy.
Imagine the parade, 250,000 Geordies in the city centre, limbs everywhere.
But where's the after party?
Big market?
No, Saudi Arabia.
What?
Just imagine Boulevard World in Riyadh, full of black and white, and it's actually easy to get there.
What about the visas, the flights, the hassle?
Online or on arrival. Plus, visitsaudi.com are doing a package deal where you can just get it all together.
So let me get this straight. Toon win a trophy, and suddenly we're going all Sean Longstaff and going travelling.
Sun, celebrations. Ashraf Hakimi is playing 4D chess.
So I found even more stuff while finding videos to put into this video, and I came across this.
Do Newcastle really want to be associated with that? Women were not allowed to drive until about a year and a half ago. If you were openly gay, you could be stoned to death. The treatment of minorities there is terrible.
Interesting. Funnily enough, the influencer videos were the reason why I decided to make a follow-up to my video in 2021. This was a long overdue video, but here it is finally, I guess. Now, to quickly address a few things before this video ends, I want to say that it is the government. It is not the people, it is the government. Just remember that, okay? That's why I always put Saudi government, whatever government, always that. That's why I do it. But what I wanted to create here was just an informational video showing you the evolution of sports washing. And now that we've had 3 years, we've been able to see that case with Newcastle United, from the negativity to now the news kind of straying away from it just a little bit more and more. I hate this chair so much, man. Also, by the way, the World Cup qualifiers video, it's in the works. I sent it all to my editor. It's a lot, so just give it some time. But, you know, the prize here is if you wait, you get a video that's probably going to be like 40 minutes, so, you know. But of course, a massive shout out to all our members, including Janos Barash, Lai Dice, Lugar BB, Aresan, Brazilian Fury, Jeremiah Owusu Ajimang, Django, Anazir Mankalankam, Alex Rod, Ulta, Miguel Munoz, Return Fire, Rory Burns, Slider Kit, Takuoka Fan, The Cypriot 35, Not Windows 95 Man, Kentra Agatra, Saint Terrence, Sylvia Citrus, Wise Orange, Rashford Enthusiast, Cocosaurus Rex, Samu, Cheesebait, Winder Gel, M4 Does Stuff, Finn Likes Rugby More, Davox, The Portugizer, TPSK25, Polo Protos, Van Fan, Lucian Von Kreuz, Gezegish Beshakivics, Mano Tango Fei, A Ghostly Owl, Coney Wolves, Leak Stab, Mud Tanai, Sketchy Card, KM89, Apollo, Congo Jas 1, German Sayu 7, Thrilling ADT 13, Los Milos, The FedEx Dude, Freya, Vecino, Jamie Vardy's 10th Red Bull, Mad for Amadiallo, Adiel, Fuffinuki, Nightwalker, Napside, Money Cash Hose, Quantavious Pork, Kev C, Dominic Griffin, Kyler Kress, Mohammed Altanib, Nish, Patrick Barley, Rashford God 5, Raspberry Ale, and Unbroken Persona. If you'd like to become a member, there'll be a link down below and up in the annotations. You can follow my Twitter if you want, follow my Instagram if you like, follow my Twitch. Again, like, I've kind of been recovering from a I know there's a lot of excuses here, but I have been actually recovering from a sickness. I've been doing other stuff too. But once that's out of the way, I could probably at least stream like once a week, just because I can have at least an opening in my schedule. But yeah, until then, I'll see you guys.